There have been a lot of developments in this free agency period, so without further ado, let's get straight into it. Now, Golden State started out the free agency period trying to pursue guys like Paul George, and namely Zach LaVine in this specific situation. Now, both parties tried their best to, piece together different packages of assets, but eventually the Warriors declined their offer, and they decided to waive Chris Paul after pushing back his $30 million guaranteed contract in order to explore trades. Nothing worked, so they just let him go. And he is now going to be a San Antonio Spur. Now, the jury's still out on whether he'll be a starter or a player coming off the bench to lead the second unit like he did for Golden State. But regardless, I feel like it's a solid pickup. It's a one-year deal. You're not going to have him for the long term. So there are not going to be too many expectations with that. But he'll definitely help you improve overall as a team. That's always been the case with him. Now, they may not contend, but they will certainly be more formidable than they were. And also, in the case of Stephon Castle, he's a solid all-around player, but to have a guy like Chris Paul in your ear and mentoring you through different, games and everything like that, not just in the sense of playmaking, but also leadership as, the younger party, that'll certainly rub off on them. So I think it's definitely something to monitor. It could be very interesting for them. Next up, a lot of Clippers things here. Alright, so they re-signed James Harden to a 2-year, $70 million contract. Why? I don't know. There's not even necessarily a way for me to feel about it, other than I think it is an overpay. And it is part of the reason why what ended up happening, which I'll detail in a little bit, that's how that came to be. Because you're allocating all that money to James Harden and Kawhi Leonard also. What money are you really going to have at that point? Not much. They are also, looking to trade Russell Westbrook, and in the event of a trade, Russell Westbrook has stated that he would want to be traded to the Denver Nuggets. Now, this report, it's very true, but nothing much has materialized from it over the past couple days. That could change. Who knows? But, if you are the Clippers, it is probably best that you let a player like Russell Westbrook go at this point, to be honest. You have to. I will give them credit for that. It's just that they are making this decision a little too late, in my opinion. Because now, you're going to be without Paul George. Now, as of Sunday, he was still with the team, of course, but he was, looking through, trying to negotiate with them, and seeing if he could get a max contract with them, a 4-year max contract with them. They would not budge and give him a 4th year at all, because by that point, he'd be extremely old, and his production, at that point, could be in the air. You're not going to see too many players that old. And granted, in NBA history, there haven't been too many players who have been that old and still remain as productive as they were in, I can't even say the prime of their career, but a serviceable enough player to impact a team positively outside of LeBron James. That's truly it. So with that, Paul George decided to decline his player option. He was looking into offers from the Lakers, the Magic, and the 76ers. And eventually, on Monday, he signed a 4-year, $212 million contract with the 76ers to try to, create another, big three style team, but I don't know. I don't know about it. It really depends on how healthy Joel Embiid is. If he isn't healthy, as you saw, even when he got back into the lineup to, start out the first round, he wasn't even remotely healthy then. And you saw how it affected them in that series versus the Knicks. So if it's all on him. Otherwise, they aren't going to contend. And then you have to factor in, Paul George being an injury-prone player as well come playoff time. So it's like $53 million a year. Yeah, he gets a big payday. He gets to join forces with one of the more dominant talents in the league. And Tyrese Maxey is obviously an up-and-coming all-star caliber player. But is it really worth it if two of those guys are always question marks when it comes to playoff basketball? Not even just in terms of availability, but also productivity. There have been countless times where they have dropped, both of them, in terms of their regular season numbers. Take it to the playoffs, they're a shell of their regular season selves within an instant. And they've been on a part of some of the largest disappointments within the past decade or so. Not to mention as well, 76ers also get quite a haul. They pick up Eric Gordon. They pick up Andre Drummond, who could be a solid backup center for Embiid whenever he may find himself in an injured state. Because let's be honest, Paul Reed is not the guy for the job. Alright? But then they re-signed Tyrese Maxey to a $204 million contract. 5 years, $204 million contract. Seriously? They are combining for all of that money. And if you somehow fail to contend with that, you're just gonna be in this bankrupt state, and you have no other choice but to continue to pick up guys on minimum deals just like they did with Eric Gordon and Andre Drummond. You're gonna be in a worse spot if you cannot make shit happen. At the very least, make a conference finals, something that Joel Embiid has never done. Make a run that shows the front office that they have something to work with, and they can continue to build off of it, even with the little bit of scraps that they have to make it work. Just, you have to make it far. There is no other way around it. If they don't, the season is automatically a failure, and you're literally in fucking bankruptcy. That's just as simple as that. Although, hey, positive of all this, at least Tobias Harris's bum ass is out there, and yet he goes to the Pistons for 2 years and $26 million. Now, obviously, his role on a championship level team is debatable to many people. He honestly may find himself in a position where he'll thrive in Detroit. Obviously, this is his second stint in Detroit, so I think he knows the lay of the land a little bit, but you want that man to play an impactful role on a team that is rebuilding and looking for younger talent to build around, and trying to invest around a guy like Tobias Harris. I don't know how that will really work. They honestly need to spend time trying to get guys like Ron Holland involved. I don't know why you would go with Tobias Harris. As the guy in that situation, you're paying him that kind of money, he's going to start at the small forward position. But it just seems like I really don't know what they're thinking about. Now a lot of these forwards on their team, they can't necessarily shoot right now. That is a problem for every single one of them. I understand that. But wouldn't you want to spend that time developing them instead of trying to put yourself in a spot to win more games behind a guy like Tobias Harris with Cade Cunningham and Jaden Ivey and all those guys? Doesn't make a lot of sense. And I feel like it's going to backfire for them. So we'll see how it goes. The Warriors also just go through a lot at this point by trying to trade for Paul George, and the Clippers ended up the Warriors ended up trying to trade for Paul George, and at first I thought that the Clippers declined offers and were just being stupid because you just willingly decided to not try to get an asset back for Paul George. But I learned that they tried to ask for Jonathan Kuminga in a trade, and the Warriors shut that down, thank goodness. So, as a result, that was declined, and they ended up letting Klay Thompson walk. They tried to negotiate with him. They were going to offer him a 2-year deal, but he wasn't taking it at that point, and I feel like it is just a culmination of a lot. Now, obviously, it is tough to see him move on, inevitably, but, I mean, one, it was a blessing to watch them for the last 11 years, at least, him and Steph Curry and Draymond Green and all those guys just dominate the game for that stretch of time. Just makes that 2022 championship even sweeter as well. So, credit to him, and I hope that he finds success. But in terms of why things have gotten to this point, a lot of stuff just built up. Now, I've seen people say that Draymond Green ruined the organization, and while I'm not going to personally subscribe to that belief, one can say that, and I can't totally disagree either. It's a culmination of stuff. Obviously, with the front office trying to build a team with Jordan Poole and Andrew Wiggins, young guys like that, while still trying to keep the core three intact, and it just put them in fiscal hell trying to make all that money work out. And with all of the new CBA rules, it is difficult to try to keep a core three like that together when they are all demanding a heavy amount of money like that. Not to mention as well, when it comes to Draymond Green, that punch on Jordan Poole literally killed all of the chemistry that the team had leading into that very next season. It was just so horrible. And even he came out last season when it ended in the second round somehow. Even he said it himself that he felt very awkward when it came to trying to be the leader during road games, because it's like, how are you going to truly try to get people to listen to you? And that tape, that video comes out of you just doing that to Jordan Poole. How are you going to rally people together? How are they going to try to back you up and run through a wall for you when you're going to potentially do that to one of them? Not to mention all of the antics as well, just continuously building up year after year after year. And then the biggest thing as well, going back to the front office aspect, it's not only just them being in fiscal hell, and it's not just Draymond. The fact of the matter is, Jordan Poole got paid after that championship run. Andrew Wiggins got paid after that championship run. Draymond Green was in a similar situation last season, demanding a lot of money, but he came to his senses and realized the condition of the team, and he decided to take a 4-year deal for a lot less money per year, $25 million per year, but the deal was done. Meanwhile, Klay, yes, they were very patient with Klay throughout the entire process, especially after he tore his ACL and Achilles and was out for consecutive seasons. They definitely remembered that, and they wanted to do right by him as best as they could. But when it came down to it, from his point of view, like, they aren't going to offer me that security. They're going to try to play this hard to get game with me, and I've done what I've done for this organization. Meanwhile, a guy like Jordan Poole can get paid. He's just getting started here. Andrew Wiggins has barely put in the work with this franchise that I have, but they see him go on this magical finals run where you could make an argument that he deserved a share of the finals MVP, and they get inspired to pay him. Then they know that Draymond Green is just this wild character, and they decide to pay him over me. He may have felt a way about that, so he decided to leave. And with that, according to reports, multiple reports by multiple insiders, he is now going to be a Dallas Maverick. He signed a 3-year, $50 million deal with them, and it makes sense. Defense is still going to be an issue, of course, though he's going to be in the front court. He's not going to remain a shooting guard with this team. But when it comes to the Mavericks, three-point shooting and offense in general during the NBA Finals was hard to come by. So if they can get that back, you know, in a guy like Klay Thompson, who, all things considered, when he is at his best, is truly one of the best in the game, with players who can just shoot the lights out. His defense after those multiple injuries was never going to be the same, but he'll still lock down every now and then. Don't expect too much, but he can still provide that for you. Plus, there's a chance that with all of what was going on, maybe he was holding back just a little bit during this last season. Some games he did look absolutely terrible, but who knows? He may have truly been saving that for a more favorable time for him in his career to just get back on track, because he was not inspired to play for the Warriors anymore, unfortunately. But hopefully he finds success in Dallas. I don't necessarily know if it makes them a championship winner. I'm not going to say that they aren't championship contenders even with this move, because they literally just came off of a finals appearance. It's hard, but they got there. Who's to say that they could never do it again with this core? It's difficult, but it's not impossible when they've literally just done it a couple weeks back. That would just be disingenuous to say. We have a person coming back into the NBA. Kevin Porter Jr. was playing basketball in a Greek league. Ended up actually dropping the first triple-double in history for said Greek league. But overall, across the season there, he was doing well enough to attract some NBA teams, and he signed a 2-year deal with the Clippers. If they potentially lose Russell Westbrook, you can have Kevin Porter Jr. carve out a nice little role there. They still have Bones Highland, I believe. They still have James Harden. Who's to say that they don't put Kevin Porter Jr. in at starter as a starter, despite having knowledge of Harden's and Kevin Porter Jr.'s shared time in Houston for a brief period of time and how terrible that fit was. Not to mention his time in Houston with John Wall as well. Kevin Porter Jr., even with this potential rejuvenation, is not going to be a player that is going to catch and shoot for you or give you premier off-ball movement. It's not going to happen. He needs to have the ball in his hands to have the most possible success. And even then, he has efficiency issues, like James Harden has had in so many of his years playing basketball. We'll see how it works, though. Credit to him for getting back. His ex-girlfriend happens to be a WNBA player, and she's become well acquainted with Jaylen Brown, so don't let those two run into each other. Tavius Caldwell-Pope signed with the Magic for 3 years, $66 million deal. He is not the first former Nugget to go to the Magic, obviously. Gary Harris still remains there and did re-sign as well. It's a solid pickup. You want a wing player that can give you just rugged defense when you need it desperately. And it felt like they just, at the most inopportune times in the series versus the Cavs, could not buy a stop. Even with a guy like Banchero or Jalen Suggs in the backcourt, Donovan Mitchell was just able to torch them completely. So they're shoring up on that in the future by making this move. Giannis Valanciunas signed a 3-year, $30 million deal with the Wizards. It's not a game changer. I think it's decent, though. You know what you're getting out of a guy like Giannis Valanciunas. Definitely a stretch 5. You can just rebound his ass off and get you solid shots in the paint when you need a bucket. But it will be interesting. Are you going to move him to the 4? Because he can play it a little bit. But I feel like Saw is too long in terms of height to have him play forward. They listed him as a forward. That man is a center. He's playing center. There's no shot around it. Because it just makes no sense to do that. It's so weird to have a 6'10 center and a 7'2" power forward. That just doesn't line up to me. Like, just put that man at center where he belongs. Cade Cunningham signed a 5-year, $226 million contract extension. Standard rookie contract extension, I should say. It's not a max, but I feel like, bro, the Pistons are going to have to seriously consider around this same time next year. I guarantee it. They better consider restructuring this deal in the long term. You can't afford this. You can't afford this. You are in no position to do this. Cade Cunningham might be deserving of a, pretty solid contract. But to give him a contract extension like this that's worth $51.2 million a year, your team is quite literally coming off of a season where they tied for the longest losing streak in a single season in NBA history. You have nobody of note surrounding Cade Cunningham in Detroit. Not to say that Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey aren't solid players, but you have not done a good enough job of constructing this roster around Cade Cunningham to yield potential wins in the upcoming season. And you're already going to make a move like that will inevitably capstrap you and force you to settle for minimum players, veteran minimum players that are not going to have an impact, a successful impact on your team at all. No wonder you settled for a guy like Tobias Harris. Like, it is crazy. And I guess that's kind of the other side of it. Because, honestly, if I'm Cade Cunningham, I'm thinking that I want to get the fuck out of there too. The Pistons are in a spot where they can lock him up. They're going to do it. Because as it stands right now, who the fuck else is coming to Detroit, Michigan to play NBA basketball for the Pistons? It is something that has almost never been the case. So whenever they can lock somebody down for good, they're going to try to do it. You know, you take it back to like the 1980s. Dumars was a Detroit Piston lifer. Even that in itself is pretty magical. It doesn't happen with a team like this in such a small market. So they want to lock him up and make sure that he doesn't leave. I am still just I don't get it. You have no way to make another move if it backfires, and it's going to, because the Pistons are just terribly bad. And you're going to fork over $51.2 million to one player. What the hell are you going to do when it's time for a contract extension for Jaden Ivey or Jalen Duren? And you think you're very capable of giving them a similar type of deal? Like, I don't know about it. It's not even that Cunningham's a bad player. It's just for what the team is right now. It's not wise to give one player all of that money. You need way more. And you need to establish a very solid culture in the Detroit burst before showing all that out. That's crazy. Naji Marshall signed to the Mavericks on a 3-year, $27 million contract as a direct replacement for Derrick Jones Jr., who signed with the Clippers on a 3-year, $30 million deal. Hiring Naji Marshall is a solid move for the Mavericks, but if you're the Clippers, you lose Paul George for nothing, you overpay for James Harden, you're probably going to lose Russell Westbrook for nothing, though I don't think you expect to get anything back for him. And Kawhi is just, you secure him, but is it really worth it? Is he going to be available? There's too many questions there. Like, they really did a poor job of handling this. Truthfully, I don't know how to explain it. They just goofed everything up. You know, biggest losers of the free agency period of the entire offseason so far have to be them, without a doubt. The evidence is all around you. But a big winner, the Thunder getting Isaiah Hartenstein for 3 years, $87 million. Hartenstein is going to be a perfect complement to Chet Holmgren's offensive game. Now, obviously, Holmgren can play defense with his length, but in terms of rebounding, he struggled in that series against the Mavericks. And having a big body like Hartenstein down low, who can grab boards, who can also facilitate at an elite rate for a center, that's going to be resourceful. That defense, they're just continuing to level up. They're going to be a problem. Celtics also get some extensions going. They signed some of their role players back. Derrick White also got a 4-year, $125.9 million contract extension with them. Definitely needed to lock him up because that was always a question. I thought it was going to be $25 million a year. $32 million per year almost seems like a little too much, but okay. You do what you have to do for a player like him. He was definitely an important piece to the championship run. So you want to maintain that for as long as you can. And Jason Tatum also got a 5-year, $314 million contract extension. And the Celtics possess the 2 players with the largest deals in NBA history. Now, I thought Jason Tatum was going to get 6 years, starting at $60 million. That would have just been ridiculous. Still, he's getting paid that amount per year, a little higher than that. Yeah, I mean, jeez. They've already won, but it's like, man, if you can't maintain that success now and try to parlay all of this into another championship, maybe 2 more, you would have shelled out all this money for nothing. Because you are in a situation where you have to compete now. You're maintaining your roster and you're keeping a lot of the core guys. Some of them are leaving, but you're keeping a lot of the core guys. Xavier Tillman, for example, just re-signed today. So that sends the message that you're running this thing back. You have faith that you can do it. You have to do it. There's not really another way out of it. That has got to be the mindset in Boston from now on for at least the next 5 years. It is a championship or bust pretty much every season. But I'll say, if you want to become a dynasty, just win two or so in the next 5 years. But if you go ringless in the next 5 years and you're shelling out all this money, not to mention all the money that you've allocated to Jrue Holiday already and Kristaps Porzingis already, man, you better go out there and compete or you gonna have a lot of trouble to deal with. That's all I'm saying. You also have today Donovan Mitchell getting a 3-year, $150 million contract. Honestly, getting a deal like that done for Donovan Mitchell, if you are a Cavs fan, you are breathing a sigh of relief today. So many questions about him potentially leaving, not wanting to be a part of that organization. Rumors of a potential rift between him and Darius Garland. All of those are qualmed today. Other news, coinciding with all of these different contracts being shelled out to superstar caliber players, elite role players, unlike the ownership group for the Boston Celtics have actually decided to sell their team, which honestly, it's smart business. You are quite literally leading the organization that is at the height of its popularity after recently winning the NBA championship. So prices are obviously, inevitably going to go up for the Boston Celtics. There's going to be a lot of value in them anyway because they're such a historic franchise. So it's smart business. It's just whoever gets the highest bidding, man, you better be willing to deal with having to shell out all that money to Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And again, you've got to win. You have to win. There's no other way around it. Like, even if you try to restructure those deals, man, they are still getting paid a lot of money. And honestly, the way I'm seeing it, how some of these max contracts typically go, like $60 million per year is the average salary, but let's be frank, some of that money is going to be backloaded. Let's be perfectly honest with ourselves. There's obviously a signing bonus that they're going to get as well with this money. They're probably getting something like $20 million a year this upcoming season, and it's probably just going to increase every year, which again is fine in a sense if you are winning. But if you're not, it's going to be tough to restructure that. Detroit Pistons hired JB Bickerstaff, and honestly, it looks like a silly hire from the outside, but you have to keep in mind that the Cavs were a bottom-of-the-barrel team for quite a while before he came there. Then they made a play-in, contended for the playoffs, and ever since then, they've been in contention. While the Cavs may not have been so willing to settle for continuous playoff contention, if you're the Pistons, you're probably itching to make it back to the playoffs. And with that, element that JB Bickerstaff has, if he could potentially do that for the Pistons, he'd already won and would have already exceeded expectations. But again, at the same time, you saw a more established winner in Monty Williams just lose all motivation, and the Pistons ended up with the terrible season they had partly because of that. So, more than anything else, more than X's and O's, JB Bickerstaff has to bring a sense of purpose into what the hell he's doing. Now, he may not always succeed over the course of this season, but they need to establish a culture there, and it's going to start with that coach. Especially after last season, some of these young players have probably just lost all faith in any potential coach because Monty Williams did them that terribly. You have to find a way to somewhat restore that, getting the trust of the players and faith, and you may be able to get them into playoff contention. They're nowhere near doing anything, but just having them make the playoffs or the play-in one time will do wonders, and then you can build from there. And lastly, the Warriors signed Kyle Anderson to a 3-year, $27 million deal. I don't even know how to feel about it. And honestly, like Kyle Anderson, I just think he's not very good. But I just say that out loud. I state that to try to wrap my head around what the hell is going on. I really don't know. But that'll do it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.